Hey YouTube, my name is Al and I hope you are keen to find out how to upgrade your GoPro experience, because we are going to be talking about what the Peau Production non-distortion lenses can do for your GoPro. So stick around.
The ones who make it through the cocoon, the ones who learn to fly, the butterfly people with infinite wings, with colors to paint the
Alright, so we're talking about the Peau Production non-distortion lenses, which are lenses that you can use to replace a stock GoPro fisheye lens. This is going to be a comprehensive review because I haven't found many independent reviews and information on these non-distortion lenses. So hopefully this video can help you figure out whether the Peau Production lenses are right for you and perhaps give you some guidance to help you progress and avoid potential bumps in the road. I'll put links in the description below to various parts of the video if you want to skip to topics that interest you. But quickly a disclaimer. None of the gear I'm talking about in this video is sponsored. I've purchased both GoPros I own and the Peau Production lenses are installed in the cameras. So yes, I own two GoPros, both which have the stock lenses replaced with the Peau Production lenses, which should tell you a little bit about my affection for the lenses. I own the 8.25 lens, which is a 3x zoom compared to stock lens, and I also own the 3.37 lens, which has a very similar zoom to the stock lens. I also want to tell you a little bit about myself so you have context that will help you to evaluate whether information in this video relates to you. I'm primarily a musician and music producer who is now also doing social media video production for clients and using video for my own music and creative projects. This means I do not require and have no experience in super high-end gear, although I definitely want to push the limits of the GoPros to achieve quality results, both for creative videos and for capturing more run-of-the-mill footage. I own a GoPro drone, camera grip, and two Hero 6s, which I only bought at the beginning of 2018. From the beginning, I've always loved the cameras and generally use the GoPros for capturing capturing running and gunning footage for general use and to get cinematic style footage as well, often in conjunction with the camera grip and the drone. So by implication, I'm not using the GoPros in the way GoPros are generally intended, for example, capturing high action extreme style footage. And by the way, the stock lenses are well suited for that purpose. Having said that, I've never liked being forced to film everything with fisheye distortion. So I've been looking for ways to overcome that problem. Obviously it is possible to shoot in linear mode, but in 2.7K, but to me that wasn't an ideal solution, as I will talk about a little bit later. I'll put some links below to my creative and business project to show you how I've used the GoPros with the new lenses. It is also important to note that whilst my experience with the lenses are with the Hero 6, the information in this video relates to the Hero 7 and Hero 5 as well. So the lenses I will be talking about in this video are relevant to the Hero 5, 6 and 7. Lastly, if you find this video useful, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button for the occasional tech review and creative videos that I do. Thank you. I think it's useful to quickly answer a question: are GoPros still relevant in 2019 and beyond? Should you even consider upgrading the lenses, especially as the GoPros seem to have attracted some negativity in recent years? Some of the criticism I think is fair, such as their problems with low light and not great dynamic range, but I think they are still one of the best action cameras around, especially with the release of the Hero 7. To me, their relevance is captured in three words: 1, action; 2, perspective; and 3, ownership. In other words, you already own one of the GoPros and are still enjoying the camera. I personally think they're damn fine cameras when you consider that you can get great images from the Hero 6 and 7, and they're waterproof right out the box, having an amazing in-camera digital stabilization. A little bit more about the other points. By action, I think we all know what is meant in terms of being able to capture high energy sports and extreme fun footage. But I also mean action in terms of being able to insert yourself as a videographer much more easily into an environment where action is happening around you. For instance, I did a project with a bunch of guys called the Dahogan Empire, which is a semi-contact form of LARPing, and it was amazing to use the GoPros to capture their live action whilst inserting myself in their midst, as is being shown in the B-roll right now. I think that the benefit of capturing unique perspectives should not be underestimated. These cameras are amazing for getting footage where they are creatively placed in non-standard positions on the person or object carrying the camera. On that note, I did a video project with my brother with two ballet dancers and two GoPros capturing an FPV perspective of them doing a pas de deux. It's very exciting, so please keep an eye on this channel to find out more. So back to the point I was making. Yes, I personally think the GoPros are still very relevant in 2019 and beyond. So before moving on to the actual lenses, let's quickly talk about the benefits and downsides of the stock GoPro fisheye distortion lens versus the non-distortion lenses. I think there is definitely a time and place for capturing footage with fisheye distortion, as it is good in certain situations. Fisheye distortion comes into its own when you need a wide angle perspective to film footage where you don't have the option to frame the camera accurately. So when a GoPro is strapped to a skier's chest, or as he or she thunders down slope, or onto a biker taking an afternoon ride, there's no ways the camera can be accurately framed. Then in post-production you can edit the framing to suit the scene, especially if you are filming in 4K. So the wide perspective can help to capture all the action, even if in post-production some of the extraneous image is cropped out. Secondly, maybe you like the super wide perspective because there's a sense of grandeur and interest which might be well suited for a particular project. I'm thinking of shooting footage of mountain ranges or vistas of nature where you want the grandness of the subject to overwhelm the senses. In other words, sometimes a wide angle fisheye look is in fact a creative choice. So let's talk about the non-fisheye as well as changing the zoom factor from the stock GoPro lenses. Why would you not want fisheye distortion? Firstly, I think the non-distorted look is more cinematic. Let me explain. Although the word cinematic is in my opinion rather overused, many factors go into making footage cinematic, one of them being the fact that there's no fisheye distortion. So maybe in general you're not using your GoPro in any action-orientated way, but in a more creative way, and therefore the fisheye distortion is less acceptable. Also, in replacing the stock lens, you have the opportunity to change the zoom as well. Which brings me to my next point. You want your subject to appear closer and be a more focal point than what the stock lens generally allows. In other words, you want a different zoom factor. In my experience, I often struggled using the stock lens when I wanted to focus on a person or object as my main point of interest. The wide angle makes the overall scene the main subject rather than the person or object in the scene. So I wanted to find a way to be able to focus on a point of interest rather than just capture wide views. As I mentioned, I have two GoPros with different lenses and I can pick which one is best suited for capturing the moment. Lastly, on the subject, I want to make a point that's perhaps a little unscientific, and that is that the GoPro sensor is really quite small, being a 1/2/3 sensor. And I personally want to use the sensor as productively as possible. If you consider that the stock lens can capture an almost 180-degree field of view in super wide mode, meaning a huge amount of information and is being packed into a little sensor, then details inevitably become downplayed because the little sensor can only do so much. Compare this to changing the zoom and horizontal field of view through replacing the stock lens, which means capturing less of the scene in front of you, but therefore allowing what is in the image to be captured with more detail. So a simple way of putting it, in a way you're asking the sensor to do a little bit less work. So again, a stylistic choice about how much detail you want the little sensor to capture and what your tolerance is for what a small sensor can do. Alright, so those are my thoughts regarding fisheye distortion versus distortion-free lenses. So if you decide that fisheye distortion is not for you, let's talk about ways of removing it. The first and most obvious way to get rid of fisheye distortion in the Hero 6 and 7 is to use in-camera settings to do this. I'm sure you know already that when the camera is set to 2.7K resolution, you can use the linear mode setting to remove fisheye distortion. The problem with this is that the setting is not available in 4K or even at higher frame rates in 2.7K, as it requires too much processing power. Furthermore, some of the image is cropped in linear mode, and so you are not using the full sensor to capacity. Also, in the back of my mind, again, another unscientific observation is the thought that digital processing is required to remove the fisheye distortion. And the more digital processing of the image that occurs in camera to the incoming footage, the more artifacts and softness might find their way into the footage. But like I said, this is not based on any objective research, so I'm happy to be proven wrong here. And I mention it only because it genuinely niggles at the back of my mind. The second method is to get rid of fisheye distortion in post-production. There are many videos out there that explain how this is done on various platforms, so I will let you search for those if you require. But the main point is again that you lose resolution when removing distortion in this way, as you will need to crop in on the image. On that note, I found that software handles this differently and with different results. I've used both Cyberlink's Power Director and Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve, and whilst I currently use DaVinci Resolve and I'm much happier with that to edit and what I can do on it, in the one area I preferred Power Director is how it fixed fisheye distortion compared to the implementation in DaVinci Resolve. So the main point is your results may vary with your particular software package. The third method to remove fisheye distortion is to use Ribcage products. Quoting now from the Ribcage website, Ribcage is a modification for GoPro cameras built out of machined aluminium. The Ribcage allows you to connect the largest selection of lenses possible onto the camera. Connect small M12 CS and C mount lenses or use optional adapters to connect your favorite SLR lenses. So basically the Ribcage system allows you to add various mounts that allow a wide variety of lenses with different mount types to be used on your GoPro. They don't replace the stock lens in the stock lens housing itself, but add a mount on the outside of the camera. And the upside of this is you have great flexibility in the lenses you can use, and once you have set up the mount, you can perform quick lens changes on the fly. The downside is Ribcage changes the form factor of the GoPro cameras, which becomes bulkier, and the camera is no longer waterproof. So not all GoPro accessories can then be used on the new setup, and you obviously can't take it underwater unless you use you probably just can't take it underwater. Now, I don't have any experience with the Ribcage, so if you want to know more about their system, you will need to look up on their website, and I'll put the link below. And then the fourth method to remove fisheye distortion is to replace the stock lens with one of the options from Peau Productions. Unlike the Ribcage system, which mounts outside the camera, the Peau Production lenses are fitted internally, replacing the stock lens using the original mount. These lenses capture linear rather than fisheye footage and come in different zoom and focal length options. That is, of course, the subject of this video. So now Peau Productions offers two ways to get hold of their lenses. The first is to buy a separate lens and install it on the camera you already own. The second way is to buy a GoPro directly from them, which comes pre-installed with one of the lenses and removes the need for you to replace your own lens. Now, I actually did both options. I bought the Peau Pro 87 pre-installed with the 3.37 lens, and I bought the 8.25 lens, which I used to replace the stock lens on my Hero 6. So now I own two Hero 6s, each with different focal lenses, which allow me to choose the right camera for the job. Current prices in 2019 are $140 for the lens and $640 for the Hero 7 Pro pre-installed with one of the lenses. Note that earlier model Heroes are on sale, so you can opt for a Hero 5 or 6 at a cheaper price, which is not a bad idea as the quality of these earlier cameras is still really good. I think buying the Pro pre-installed can be a very good option if you have a budget and you're looking for a new GoPro, especially as it takes out the hassle of installing and focusing the lenses. One word of caution, the Peau Productions sells products for many platforms including DJI and their own Maper cameras. So make sure you buy the right lens for the GoPro 5, 6 and 7 and not the general M12 lenses with similar but different specs as I did. Yep, I had a blonde moment and bought the wrong lens, which I had to later return and get replaced. So for your information, according to Peau Productions, technically both the Hero 5, 6 and 7 style lenses and the lenses for the earlier GoPros and other platforms are M12, but with different thread pitching and lens barrel housing designs. So the Hero 6 and 7 are not interchangeable with early GoPros. Okay, so now you've been warned, make sure you buy the correct style lens because they look very similar until you try and install them. And to help you with this, I will add the links to the lenses in the description below. Okay, so a little bit about the lenses themselves. Here I'm going to let Peau Productions describe the products, paraphrasing from their website. So starting with the 3.37mm lens. The 3.37mm lens is our newest 4K lens designed for the GoPro Hero 7, 6 and 5 black camera. With its 87-degree horizontal field of view, 16 megapixel sharp 7 glass non-fisheye optics, this lens captures the entire image sensor. Compared to our popular 3.97mm lens, the 3.37mm is a little wider field of view and has better edge sharpness. The flare is a little more concentrated into points instead of spread out like the 3.97mm. The 3.37mm also has a shorter TTL, so it sticks out of the camera less. This means you can use it in the GoPro Hero with a stock front lens protector installed and maintain the waterproof rating without requiring the use of additional waterproof housing. After removing the stock lens, the 3.37mm threads in easily. No need to change to a different lens mount, and all GoPro accessories that mount around the lens protector are supported. No gap is present between the lens and the GoPro lens surrounding, as a 3.37mm lens spans the entire cavity. With it being 36 degrees narrower than the stock GoPro lens, this lens brings your subject closer without being too zoomed in to introduce image jitter. Okay, so having said that, in practice I did not notice too much of a difference in zoom factor between the stock lens and the 3.37. So this is a good lens to use if you would like to keep using GoPro in a similar fashion to what you have been doing with the stock lens. It is a good general lens. And that is an important point about not introducing unwanted image jitter if you want to use the onboard image stabilization of the Hero 6 and 7. Alright, so that was the 3.37. Let's talk about the 8.25. To paraphrase from Peau Productions again. The 8.25mm is our newest 4K lens for the GoPro Hero 7, 6 and 5 black cameras. With its 41-degree horizontal field of view, 16 megapixel lens, sharp 7 glass, non-fisheye optics, this lens also captures the entire image sensor in perfect edge-to-edge sharpness. We recommend keeping shutter speeds at 1/500 of a second or slower to reduce jello from the rolling shutter during full sun aerial shooting. If the slower shutter speeds are too bright, you can add ND filters to stop down the light. Due to its small size, it does not stick out from the camera when focused, thus allowing the use of the front glass lens protector without needing additional waterproof housing. Since the field of view of the 8.25mm is very narrow, 3 times zoom compared to stock, it is not recommended to be used on mounts that may transfer vibrations to it. Alright, so they were recommending using a gimbal or something similar with cameras installed with 8.25 lens, and I can confirm that the gimbal is really required, as the inbuilt image stabilization will not be able to handle the additional shake generated by a greater zoom. Having said that, I've used the camera grip and is more than adequate for this lens, and I've gotten very nice footage using this combo. Alright guys, so I want to just make a few comments about using these lenses. Firstly, always be aware that you can crop in if you want, but you can't regain footage you lost due to too narrow focal length. So if you're going to get one lens that perhaps the 3.37 is a better general lens, as it is more forgiving in terms of how you frame your subject. I would submit that the 8.25 is a more specialist lens that would work better on a second GoPro. Now I end up using both lenses and like the different functions of both, but I'm unsure as to which would suit the situation better. I would generally head towards a 3.37 lens. Secondly, the effect of the sun and lens flare, especially when using the 8.25 lens, your relationship to sun and lens flares will change compared to stock lens. This is because when filming towards the sunlight will take up a larger portion of the image than you would be used to when using the stock lens. This will affect the ability of the camera to film scenes towards the sun compared to using the stock lens, because the direct light from the sun will be more prominent and exposure settings will be affected. The camera will darken the scene considerably to cope with the sun being much larger within the frame. So often footage will not be usable if you're shooting towards the sun. Also, in terms of your perspective settings, make sure you use only the wide view and not linear view or super wide view unless you're going for a particular creative look when you want some barrel distortion. As I understand, the wide view is the baseline for the camera where the least amount of digital processing occurs, and also is the view that these lenses are designed to work with. Remember that you'll need to use some form of stabilizer, such as a gimbal, if you're going to install the 8.25 lens in your GoPro. And lastly, remember the camera is still waterproof with these lenses installed, so you can use all your old you can use it in the same way that you've used your other the camera with the stock footage. I just want to say a few words about my experience with the company, mostly because I knew very little about Peau Productions before I went and bought my first lens, and I want to share a little bit about my interactions with them. In terms of customer service, I would give them a score of between 6 to 10 out of 10. On the plus side, I received very good advice on their webpage, chat and via email regarding purchase choices, and the purchase and delivery of the lenses went off without a hitch. On the downside, there were a few times when I had to wait a few days for a reply to my queries. I heard afterwards that there had been some staff turnover at the time that I was making the purchase, which might have caused a problem. So but for a medium-sized company, my experience has been basically good, and one can see that they are passionate about their products. Whilst on the topic of technical aspects of the lenses, I actually emailed Peau Productions some questions in preparation for making this video, and the CEO, Nolan Ramsay, kindly replied to my questions. I think the information is pretty interesting, so I will read some of the email now. Firstly, I asked, does Peau Productions design the lenses themselves? And he answered, yes, this is an exclusive custom lens by us. I then asked, do you manufacture a lens in-house? He answered, yes, with China OEM and China testing. My last question, for my last question, can you say a little bit about the philosophy behind the company and what makes you tick? And then Nolan replied, the 8.25 lens was actually our first attempt at designing the lens we're using on our Peau Kernel 14.4 megapixel cameras. By the way, Peau Productions has a sister company called Peau that manufactures survey cameras, and yeah. This first version didn't get sharp enough at the edges for the 14 megapixel sensor, but it works great on a 12 megapixel camera like the GoPro. So we decided to offer it for sale for cameras that use a 1/2 12 megapixel less resolution sensor. We've come out with a newer version which we use on our Kernel cameras, but the new 20 megapixel lens is too large to easily use on most cameras, especially the GoPro, if wanting to keep them waterproof. The 60 megapixel 8.25 lens that you are using is offered in two versions, one for the GoPro Hero 7, 6 and 5 cameras, and one for all other M12 lens mount cameras, which are the GoPro Hero 4 and 3 Plus, and 3 cameras, the DJI Phantom 4 and 3 cameras, Unique, etc. It has been used by many high-profile companies, including SpaceX, who use it in many of the cameras which filmed the Starman live video. It has been used by NASA, many major universities in the USA, etc. Our 8.25 lens is the only M12 lens that exists in the world at this narrow focal length, which is 47mm equivalent, and at this high resolution. So while our Peau company started by modifying other companies' cameras, offering lenses and filters to provide field of views that the original camera manufacturers had not intended, we have since been concentrating our R&D solely on our Peau brand products. Hence why this 8.25mm lens even exists, is that it was a Peau camera product that found good use for our Peau mods customers. Right guys, so that's a little bit about Peau Productions themselves. I'm going to make another video showing how to replace the lenses, as I struggled a bit when I first did this. But I just wanted to finish off with a few clips of using the upgraded lenses. I won't crop in any way changing the framing of the shots, so you will hopefully see how different they look from the stock lenses. Note that the only processing I've done is color grading, and I've not done any fisheye distortion correction. I must just mention that all this footage was shot in our winter, so the colors will be towards the browns rather than the lush green you normally see in YouTube videos. I will also not do a side-by-side comparison between the stock lens and the Peau Production lenses, basically because it's not practical for me to do so, as I no longer have the stock lens installed in any of my cameras. I will put a link below to Peau Productions website where they do side-by-side comparisons for you to have a look. In addition, in the description below, I will post a video I did prior to one I'm about to show you, which was shot using stock lens, and where I did do quite a lot of correcting of fisheye distortion. You can compare the two to get a sense of the different effect between using the two types of options in post-production. Alrighty, so on to the video.
Dreams with her friend the moon, the to the stars that sail her sky, she sweeps the tears we refused. Deep inside she knows our truth. We've come this time to be the one to make it through the cocoon,
Alrighty, so I hope that was a good illustration for you, and I want to close off now with a few remarks. Whilst the Peau Production lenses are not cheap, they could be a really good way for you to upgrade your GoPro experience and use your camera in ways that suit your shooting style better than the stock fisheye lens might give you. Whilst you can shoot in linear mode in 2.7K, these lenses can help you move fisheye optically rather than through software, which I think leads to better results, and you can obviously shoot in 4K with removing the fisheye distortion. I've absolutely enjoyed using these new lenses, and I'm very glad I upgraded because my overall experience with these lenses has been very positive, and I personally have enjoyed the look of these lenses compared to the stock lens. I had a few issues early on when focusing the lens I installed myself, which I'll talk about when I make the installation video, but once I sorted that out, I had no problems with the footage shot through these lenses, as the quality is really good. Quick shout out to Peau Productions for sharing information that appeared in this video, as it helped to enrich it for me. Let me know in the comments below if you have used any of these lenses and what your experience is with them. And also let me know if you have any questions would you like me to answer in future videos on this particular topic. Lastly but not least, if you found this video useful, please do consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell, as I put out occasional tech review and otherwise use this channel to put out my creative input, which hopefully you might enjoy. If you are a creative type and want to share your work with me, please hit me in the comment section below. Cheers and have a great day. Bye.